The throne room of the Velkhari Empire stretched vast and magnificent before Queen Lysara. She sat upon her crystal seat, watching her court move below like pieces on a game board. Her purple skin gleamed under the light of 3 suns streaming through massive windows. She was beautiful by any standard, standing nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and eyes that could see through lies. 2 years had passed since she made the choice that shocked her entire empire. 2 years since she married a human. Day One stood quietly in the corner of the throne room, as he always did. He wore simple gray robes that looked plain, next to the elaborate armor and jewels of the Velkhari nobles. His black hair was tied back neatly. His brown eyes watched everything but demanded nothing. He was small compared to everyone else in the room, barely reaching 6 feet tall. The Velkhari nobles towered over him. "Look at him," whispered Lord Craven to his companion. The Queen's pet human. Still playing at being important. "Pathetic," agreed Lady Thora. 2 years as royal consort, and he still tends gardens like a common servant. What kind of warrior tends flowers? And they laughed quietly, but not quietly enough. Day One heard them. He always heard them, but he simply smiled and looked away, unbothered by their words. Lysara noticed, as she always did. Her hearts ached for him. Her people did not understand. They valued strength and combat above all else. They saw Day One's gentleness as weakness. They could not understand why their warrior queen had chosen this quiet man from a distant planet called Earth. But she remembered. She remembered meeting him 3 years ago during a diplomatic mission to his world. The humans had just made contact with the galactic community. Earth was considered a minor world, barely worth attention. Lysara had gone because protocol demanded it, expecting nothing interesting. Instead, she found Day One. He worked as a cultural liaison, helping aliens understand human customs. While other humans tried to impress the tall alien queen with boasts and displays, Day One simply talked with her. He asked about her people. He listened when she spoke of the loneliness of ruling. He shared tea with her and explained the simple beauty of Earth's gardens. "Power is easy to find in the galaxy," he had told her. "Gentleness is rare." She fell in love with his wisdom, his kindness, his calm presence. When she asked him to marry her and come to her world, he agreed without hesitation. The wedding was small and quiet, exactly as he wanted it. Her council had protested loudly. How could their queen marry such a weak creature? What would the other empires think? But Lysara ruled absolutely, and she chose Day One. Now he spent his days in the palace gardens, growing earth plants in alien soil. He read ancient texts in the library. He walked through the halls, speaking kindly to servants, learning their names, asking about their families. The nobles mocked this, but the servants loved him. "The human actually remembers my daughter's name," one servant told another. He asked if her studies were going well. "He helped me carry supplies yesterday," said another. "Didn't even ask. Just picked up a box and walked with me." At formal dinners, while the nobles discussed battles and conquests, Day One sat beside Lysara and spoke little. When he did speak, it was to ask thoughtful questions or offer quiet observations. He never raised his voice. He never demanded attention. "Husband," Lysara would say during their private evenings, "does it bother you how they speak of you?" Day One would smile and shake his head. "Words are just wind, my love. They cannot harm me unless I give them power. But you are royal consort. They should show respect." "I am content," he would reply. "I have you. I have my gardens. I have good books to read. What more could I want?" This answer both comforted and frustrated her. She loved his peaceful nature, but part of her wished he would prove himself to her people in ways they understood. Then the message arrived. Commander Vera, chief of the Velkhari military, burst into the throne room with urgency written across her features. "My queen! The Krythok Dominion has sent an ultimatum." The room fell silent. The Krythok were feared across 3 star systems. They were conquerors, brutal, and merciless. Their armies had crushed dozens of civilizations. "What do they demand?" Lysara asked, her voice steady despite her racing hearts. "3 of our colony worlds," Vera said. "Or they will destroy us. Their war fleet is already mobilizing. Our scouts report over 300 warships heading toward our borders." Panic rippled through the throne room. 300 ships. The Velkari had barely 100 in their entire fleet. "Impossible odds," muttered Lord Craven. "We cannot fight that many. We must negotiate," said Lady Thora. "Give them 1 world. Perhaps they will be satisfied. They will take 1 world and then demand more." Vera snapped. "The Krethok do not negotiate. They conquer." Lysara stood from her throne. "Call the War Council. We meet in 1 hour. We will find a way to defend our people." As the nobles rushed to prepare, Daewon remained in his corner. He watched the chaos with quiet eyes. His expression showed nothing, but Lysara noticed his hands were perfectly still. Most people fidgeted when nervous. Daewon became absolutely calm. "Husband," she called to him, "you should rest. This will be a long night. I will come to the council, if you permit it," he said softly. Several nobles snickered. What use was a gardener at a war council? But Lysara nodded. "Of course. You are always welcome." 1 hour later, the war council gathered in the strategy room. Holographic displays showed the Krithok fleet advancing. The numbers were terrifying. General Morak, the Empire's greatest military mind, shook his head grimly. "We cannot win a direct battle," he said. "Our only option is to fortify our core worlds and hope we can bleed them enough to make them reconsider." "That means abandoning the outer colonies," another general protested. "Millions will die. Better millions than billions," Morak replied coldly. They argued for hours. Every plan led to defeat. Every strategy meant massive casualties. The mood grew darker as the night went on. Daewon sat in a chair against the wall, so quiet that most forgot he was there. He watched the displays, his eyes moving across the data. Once, he leaned forward slightly as if to speak, then settled back. Finally, as dawn approached, Lysara looked to him. She was desperate now, willing to hear any idea. "Daewon," she said gently. "You have been quiet all night. Do you have thoughts to share?" The room fell silent. The generals turned to look at the small human. Several wore expressions of barely concealed contempt. Daewon met his wife's eyes. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "there are other ways to fight a war. Ways that do not require winning battles." General Morak snorted. "Speak sense, human. This is not philosophy class. We need military strategy." "Yes," agreed another general. "Leave war to warriors." Lysara saw hurt flash briefly in Daewon's eyes, though his face remained calm. She felt anger rise in her. These fools could not see past their own traditions. "Enough," she said sharply. "Daewon, please continue." But Daewon shook his head gently. "Forgive me. I spoke out of turn. I am sure your generals know best. Thanks for watching. I know the name, with a no vire, and some things apply. Scene Gen 140, he stood and bowed to her. "I will be in the gardens if you need me, my queen." As he left the room, Lord Craven muttered, "Good. Now we can discuss real solutions." But Commander Vera watched the human go, her eyes thoughtful. Something about Daewon bothered her. The way he moved, perhaps too smooth, too controlled, or the way his eyes had tracked the tactical displays, reading them with a speed that seemed practiced. She had been a soldier for 50 years. She recognized something in Daewon that others missed. She just did not know what it was yet. As the council continued its desperate planning, Daewon walked alone through the dark palace toward his gardens. His face remained peaceful. His steps were measured and calm, but his mind was far away, remembering things he had tried very hard to forget. Commander Vera could not sleep. The War Council had ended hours ago with no real plan, only desperate hopes. The Krithok fleet would arrive at their borders in 3 days. 3 days to prepare for certain death. But something else troubled her mind. Something about the human. She sat in her quarters, staring at the wall, replaying the council meeting in her mind, the way Day One had watched the tactical displays, the speed with which his eyes processed the fleet movements, the supply lines, the strategic positions. It was not the curiosity of an amateur. It was the focus of someone who understood, and that moment when he almost spoke, then stopped himself. What had he been about to say? Vera had served in the military for 50 years. She had fought in 30 campaigns. She knew how soldiers moved, how they thought, how they saw the world. There was something about Day One that her instincts recognized, even if her mind could not place it. "You are being foolish," she told herself. He is a gardener, a peaceful man who reads books, but her instincts had kept her alive through 5 wars. She trusted them more than logic. Before dawn, she made a decision. She went to her secure terminal and began searching. Earth's databases were connected to the galactic network now. Surely, there would be records about the Queen's consort. Background information. History. Something. What she found was disappointing. Day One had worked as a cultural liaison for 5 years before meeting the Queen. Before that, the records simply said he worked for the Earth government in various capacities. Nothing specific, nothing interesting. Dead end, she muttered. But then she noticed something odd. The dates did not quite match. There was a gap of almost 2 years between positions, and the vague description of government work covered 15 years. 15 years described in 3 words. That was strange. Humans loved their documentation. They recorded everything. Why would 15 years be summarized so briefly? Vera sat back, thinking. She had access to military intelligence networks across the galaxy. Perhaps Earth had shared information with allied worlds. She began searching deeper, looking for any mention of Day One in military or security databases. Most searches returned nothing. But then, she found a reference. A single line in a classified report from an Earth ally. It mentioned someone named Day One in connection with a hostage rescue operation 8 years ago. The report praised exceptional performance by Earth Special Operator. Vera's blood went cold. Special Operator, not gardener, not cultural liaison. Operator, she dug deeper, using every access code she possessed. It took hours. Most files were sealed or redacted. But piece by piece, she assembled a picture that seemed impossible. Before becoming a cultural liaison, Day One had served in something called Earth's Special Operations Command. The details were heavily classified, but the little information available was terrifying. Solo infiltration missions behind enemy lines. Hostage rescues with no support. Psychological warfare campaigns. One report mentioned him dismantling an entire terrorist network without firing a shot, simply by feeding false information and exploiting their internal conflicts. Another report described a mission where he had been captured and tortured for 3 days. He escaped, destroyed his captor's base, and walked 40 miles through hostile territory to safety. The report noted he refused medical treatment until after he finished his debriefing. There were commendations, medals with names she did not recognize but which seemed important. Every assessment used words like exceptional, unmatched, and invaluable asset. Then, 15 years into his service, Day One had suddenly retired. He requested all his records be sealed. He refused a promotion to command. He simply walked away. The last note in his file was from his commanding officer. "We are losing our best. But he has earned peace. His service is beyond measure." Vera sat in silence, trying to process what she had learned. The gentle man who tended gardens was one of Earth's most dangerous operatives. The quiet consort who read philosophy books had spent 15 years in the shadows, fighting wars most people never knew existed. Why had he hidden this? Why did Lysara not know? As the sun rose, Vera made another difficult decision. She had to tell the Queen. With the Krithok fleet approaching, they needed every advantage. If Day One had even a fraction of the skills these reports suggested, he might be able to help. But would Lysara feel betrayed? Would Day One be angry that his past had been exposed? Vera did not care. Her duty was to the Empire. She sent a private message to Lysara, requesting an immediate audience. They met in the Queen's private chambers. Lysara looked exhausted, her purple skin dull with worry. She had not slept. Vera, what is so urgent? She asked. My Queen, I have discovered something about your husband. Something important. Lysara's expression shifted to concern. Is Day One in danger? No. But we may have been in danger by not knowing who he truly is. Vera activated her datapad and showed Lysara the files. She watched as her queen's face changed from confusion to shock to something that might have been hurt. He never told me, Lysara whispered. 15 years as a soldier. As a, what did you call it? Special operator. Elite forces. The kind of soldier who operates alone, behind enemy lines, doing things too dangerous or sensitive for regular military. Lysara sat heavily on her couch. I asked him about his past. He said he worked for his government, then decided he wanted to help with cultural exchange. He said he wanted to build peace instead of fighting wars. Vera finished gently. Why would he hide this from me? Perhaps he wanted to leave that life behind. These files suggest he was very good at violence. Maybe he did not want that to define him. Lysara put her face in her hands. Two of her arms wrapped around herself. I fell in love with his gentleness. No, my queen. Vera sat beside her. I think his gentleness is real. But it is a choice he makes, not who he is by default. That might make it even more meaningful. Should I confront him? Yes, but there is more to consider. The Krithok fleet arrives in 3 days. If Day One has even half the skills these reports suggest, he could help us. He might see options our generals cannot. You want me to ask him to become a soldier again? The thing he left behind. I want you to give him the choice. He is your husband, but he is also part of this empire now. Our people are about to die. He should know that. Lysara was quiet for a long time. Finally she stood. Where is he now? Creeding waited. In the gardens, I believe. Of course he is. Lysara found Day One among the earth roses he had planted. He was pruning them carefully, his movements precise and gentle. He wore simple clothes stained with soil. He looked perfectly peaceful. Husband, she called softly. He turned and smiled. Good morning, my love. You look tired. Did the council last all night? Yes. Day One. We need to talk. Something in her tone made his smile fade. Of course. What troubles you? Why did you never tell me you were a soldier? She saw him freeze. Just for a moment. But it was enough. His face showed nothing. But his body had reacted. Before he could control it. I see. He said quietly. Vera investigated me. Why did you hide this? 15 years of service. Combat missions. You were some kind of elite warrior for your world. Day One set down his pruning tool. He looked at the roses, not at her. I was not a warrior. I was a tool. A weapon that my government aimed at problems and expected results. I was very good at my job. Too good. 8. What does that mean? It means I did things I am not proud of. Necessary things, perhaps, but still. Dark things. When I retired, I was empty inside. I had spent so long being efficient at violence that I forgot how to be human. He finally looked at her, and she saw pain in his eyes. When I met you, you gave me a chance to be someone new. Someone who builds instead of destroys. someone who tends gardens instead of burning them. I did not tell you because I did not want that old life to define me. I wanted to be worthy of you. You were always worthy of me, Lysara said, moving closer. But our people are about to die, Day One. The Krethok are coming. My generals have no plan. We are going to lose everything. She took his hands in hers. I love you. I love the gentleman you have become. But if there is anything you can do, anything at all to save our people, I have to ask, would you be willing to help? Day One closed his eyes. She saw conflict in his face. A war between who he was and who he had been. When he opened his eyes again, they were different. Still kind, but harder somehow. Focused. I will do whatever you need me to do, he said quietly. But understand this. Once I start thinking like a soldier again, I cannot guarantee I will stop. That part of me is difficult to control. I trust you, Lysara said. Then call your war council again, Day One said. The war council gathered again at noon. The generals looked even more exhausted than before. They had spent hours reviewing impossible scenarios, each one ending in defeat. Lord Craven sat, slumped in his chair. Even General Morak, the Empire's most decorated warrior, seemed resigned to their fate. Then Lysara entered with Day One beside her. The room fell silent. Several nobles exchanged confused glances. Why was the human here again? He had nothing useful to contribute yesterday. Gentlemen, Lysara said, her voice carrying absolute authority. Lord Craven opened his mouth to protest. But something in the Queen's expression stopped him. He had never seen her look quite so serious. Day One walked to the central holographic display. As he moved, Vera noticed the difference immediately. Yesterday, he had walked like a gentle scholar, steps soft and unassuming. Today, he moved with purpose. Each step was measured, balanced, efficient. It was the walk of a predator. Show me the Krethok fleet positions, Day One said. It was not a request. It was a command. Several generals bristled at his tone. But Vera activated the display. The hologram lit up, showing hundreds of red dots representing enemy ships advancing toward Valkyrie space. Day One studied it in silence. His eyes moved across the display with incredible speed, taking in every detail. After a full minute, he spoke. Who is commanding their fleet? Admiral Thorgun, General Morak answered. He is called Thorgun the Merciless. He has conquered 14 systems. Tell me about him. Not his victories. Him, his personality, his weaknesses. Morak frowned. Weaknesses? He has none. He is a perfect warrior. Everyone has weaknesses, Day One said flatly. Is he cautious or aggressive? Does he seek glory or results? How does he treat his subordinates? He is aggressive, Vera offered. Very aggressive. He values personal honor above all else. He leads from the front, always seeking to prove his courage. Good. What else? He is arrogant, another general added reluctantly. He believes the Krethok are superior to all other species. He has been known to mock his enemies publicly. Does he have rivals within his own command? The generals looked at each other, confused by the question. What did internal Krethok politics matter? Answer him. Lysara ordered. Yes, Morak said slowly. Intelligence reports suggest several of his commanders resent his leadership. He gained his position through family connections, not merit. Some of his officers are more experienced but were passed over for promotion. Day One nodded, still studying the display. Communication protocols. How do they coordinate their fleet? Encrypted channels. Standard military frequencies, Vera said. Why? Can we intercept and decode their communications? Eventually, yes. But it would take weeks to break their encryption. We do not need to break it. We just need to inject false data into their network at the right time. Day One turned to face the council. Show me your fleet positions. Blue dots appeared on the display. far fewer than the red ones. The Valkyrie ships looked hopelessly outnumbered. Day One studied both fleets, his mind clearly working through calculations. Finally, he spoke. You cannot win a military victory. Your fleet is too small, and the Krithok are too strong. But you do not need to win militarily. You need to make them leave. That is obvious, Lord Craven said dismissively. But how? By giving Thorgun what he wants most. Personal glory. Day One pointed to the hologram. We challenge him to single combat. Not the Queen. Me. The room erupted in protest. Madness. A human cannot defeat a Krithok warrior. This is suicide. Day One waited for the noise to die down. His face showed no emotion. You are correct. In a fair fight, I would likely lose. But the combat is not the real plan. It is a distraction. 2. He manipulated the hologram, zooming in on the Krithok command ship. While both fleets watch the fight, we insert a small team here. The command ship. They will have reduced security because everyone will be watching the duel. Our team plants false intelligence, suggesting a massive Valkyrie reinforcement fleet is about to arrive. But we have no reinforcements, Morak said. They do not know that. We create fake sensor data, false communications, fabricated reports. Make it look real enough to cause doubt. Vera leaned forward, beginning to understand. And while they are confused by the false intelligence, we exploit the divisions in their command. Day One finished. Those commanders who resent Thorgun. We send them targeted messages, using their own communication protocols. Make them believe Thorgun planned to sacrifice their ships for personal glory. Make them believe he is leading them into a trap. He turned to face the council. The Krithok fleet will fracture. Not from our weapons, but from their own internal conflicts. They will argue, divide, withdraw. Without firing a shot, we make them leave. The room was silent. The generals stared at him, trying to process what they had just heard. This is not honorable combat, Lord Craven said slowly. No, Day One agreed. It is war. And in war, you use every advantage. Deception. Psychology. Timing. You find your enemy's weakness and exploit it without mercy. Even if this works, you would still need to fight Thorgun. General Morak pointed out. He will kill you, perhaps. But I am harder to kill than I look. Vera stood. I have read his file. His classified file from Earth. He has done this before. Operations behind enemy lines. Psychological warfare. He has never failed a mission. The other generals looked at Vera in shock. What file? What are you talking about? Day One is not a gardener, Vera said. Or rather, he was not always one. He served in Earth's most elite military unit for 15 years. He is exactly the kind of person who can make this plan work. Day One gave her a small nod of acknowledgement. Commander Vera is correct. I have experience with this type of operation, but it will require perfect timing and coordination. Everyone must play their part exactly right. This is insane, muttered Lord Craven. But his voice lacked conviction. Lysara stood. Does anyone have a better plan? Any other strategy that gives us hope? No one spoke. They all knew the truth. This was their only chance. Then we follow Day One's plan, Lysara declared. General Morak, you will select the infiltration team. Commander Vera, prepare the false intelligence packages. Lord Craven, coordinate our communications network. She turned to Day One. What do you need? Time with your intelligence division. I need to know everything about Thorgun, his commanders, their communication systems. I need psychological profiles, cultural information, anything that helps me understand how they think. You will have it. What else? A good knife, Day One said simply. and a place to train. I am out of practice. Over the next 2 days, the palace transformed. Day 1 moved through the halls with quiet authority, coordinating teams, reviewing plans, asking precise questions. The servants who had loved him watched in confusion as their gentle friend became something else, something focused and dangerous. Vera brought him intelligence reports. He read them with incredible speed, pulling out relevant details, identifying weaknesses others missed. He spent hours with the infiltration team, going over the mission step by step, accounting for every possible problem. What if the command ship changes its security protocols? One team member asked. Then you abort and return. The mission is not worth your lives. What if we are captured? You are not captured. You die first. They cannot learn about the plan. His voice was cold when he said it, and the team members felt a chill. At night, he trained alone in an empty hall. Lasara watched from the doorway once, seeing him move through combat forms with fluid precision. He was not practicing. He was remembering. His body knew exactly what to do. I am afraid, she told him that night in their quarters. Good, he said, holding her close. Fear keeps you alert, but do not let it control you. What if you die? Then I die protecting what I love. There are worse ways to go. I do not want to lose you. You will not, he promised. I am very good at staying alive. It is one of the few things I am still good at. On the 3rd day, the Krithok fleet arrived at the border. Admiral Thorgun sent his message, broadcast across all channels, visible to every citizen of the Velkari Empire. People of Velkari. His voice boomed. Your time is over. Surrender your worlds or be destroyed. You have 12 hours to decide. They're providing this sealer, God Buddy Bud. His image showed a massive creature, 9 feet tall, covered in battle scars. His armor gleamed with the symbols of conquest. He looked unstoppable. Lasara prepared her response. The entire empire watched as their queen stood before the cameras, regal and defiant. Admiral Thorgun, your threats mean nothing to the Velkari, but I offer you an alternative. Single combat. You against a champion of my choosing. If you win, we surrender peacefully. If my champion wins, you leave our space forever. Thorgun's laughter echoed across the galaxy. You wish to send your greatest warrior against me? Very well. I accept. Who dares face Thorgun the Merciless? Lasara smiled. Not my greatest warrior. My husband. The camera panned to show Day 1 standing beside her. Small, human, wearing simple combat gear. He looked absurdly outmatched. Thorgun's laughter grew louder. A human? This is your champion? Very well. I will crush this insect quickly, then take your worlds anyway. We meet on the neutral ground in 6 hours. The broadcast ended. Across the Velkari Empire, people watched in horror and confusion. Their queen had sent her gentle consort to die against the galaxy's most feared warrior. But Day 1 simply checked his knife and smiled. 6 hours, he said. Perfect. Just enough time. The neutral ground was an asteroid floating in the empty space between the 2 fleets. Both sides had brought their ships to watch. Thousands of vessels hung in the darkness like silent observers to an ancient ritual. Every citizen of the Velkari Empire watched through holographic broadcasts. Even the Krithok soldiers gathered around screens, eager to see their admiral destroy the foolish human. Day 1 stood alone on the asteroid's surface. The artificial gravity generators created a comfortable environment, but the emptiness of space surrounded them on all sides. He wore simple black combat gear with no armor. At his side hung a single weapon, a combat knife forged from earth steel, 20 centimeters of folded metal, sharp enough to cut through bone. Across the gray stone, Admiral Thorgun arrived in a blast of rocket exhaust. He was massive, towering nearly 3 meters tall. His red skin was covered in ritual scars. His armor gleamed with advanced technology, powered shields that shimmered around him like heat waves. He carried an energy blade that hummed with deadly power, and a plasma pistol holstered at his side. "Little human," Thorgunn's voice boomed across the asteroid. "You have courage. I grant you that. But courage means nothing without strength. I will make your death quick. As a reward for your bravery." Day One said nothing. He simply stood still, knife held loosely in his right hand. His breathing was slow and controlled. His eyes never left Thorgunn. The silence unnerved the Krithok admiral slightly. He expected begging or bravado. Instead, the human just watched him like a scientist studying an insect. "Nothing to say?" Thorgunn laughed. "Very well. Let us begin." He charged forward. Energy blade raised. The powered armor made him fast, faster than any creature his size should move. The blade came down in an arc that would split Day One in half, but Day One was not there. He had moved at the last possible moment, shifting just enough for the blade to miss by centimeters. Thorgunn's attack hit stone, sending sparks and debris flying. "Tricky!" Thorgunn spun, slashing horizontally. Again, Day One flowed around the attack like water. The energy blade passed through the space where he had been standing. On both fleets, soldiers watched in confusion. The human was not fighting. He was just avoiding, moving with minimal effort, never striking back. Thorgunn attacked again and again, each strike powerful enough to cut through steel. But each time, Day One was somewhere else. His movements were economical, wasting no energy. He bent, turned, stepped back by just enough distance. His eyes never stopped watching Thorgunn, reading every movement before it happened. "Stand still and fight!" Thorgunn roared, frustrated now. He fired his plasma pistol. 3 shots, each one aimed perfectly at where the human should be. Day One dropped low, rolled, came up 10 feet to the left. The plasma bolts hit empty stone. He still had not struck a single blow. What the watching fleets did not see was what was happening inside the Krithok command ship. Commander Vera led the infiltration team through the ship's maintenance corridors. They wore captured Krithok uniforms and carried forged identification. Day One had planned every step of their route, timing it to match shift changes and maintenance schedules he had memorized from stolen reports. "Security checkpoint ahead," whispered Lieutenant Hanna, the team's youngest member. "Walk confidently," Vera instructed. "We belong here. We are maintenance crew." They approached the checkpoint. The guard barely looked up from his screen. Everyone on the ship was watching the duel, even the security personnel. The guard waved them through without checking their identifications properly. They entered the intelligence center 3 levels below the main bridge. Only 2 operators remained, both watching the duel on their screens. "Excuse me," Vera said in perfect Krithok language. Another thing Day One had taught her. "We are here to repair the environmental controls. Now?" one operator complained. "Orders are orders," Vera shrugged. The operators returned their attention to the screens, watching their admiral chase the surprisingly agile human. Vera's team went to work. Captain Minho, their technical expert, accessed the intelligence network. His fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced speed. He uploaded the false data packages Day One had prepared. Fake sensor readings showing a massive fleet approaching from hyperspace. Fabricated communications suggesting Velkari reinforcements. Doctored reports indicating this was a trap. On the asteroid, Thorgunn was breathing heavily. He had been attacking for 10 minutes straight and had not landed a single hit. The human moved like smoke, never where he should be. Always just out of reach. "What kind of coward are you?" Thorgunn panted. "Fight me." For the first time, Day One spoke. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "I am fighting. You just do not understand the fight." Something about that voice, that calmness, ignited rage in Thorgunn. He screamed and charged with everything he had. Energy blade blazing, moving faster than before. Day One waited until the last possible instant. Then he stepped inside Thorgunn's guard. too close for the long blade to reach. His knife flashed once, twice, 3 times. Small cuts, barely deep, targeting specific points on the armor. Thorgunn stumbled. His powered armor's right leg was sparking, one of the control cables severed by that precise strike. His shield flickered as power routing was disrupted. How? Thorgunn stared at his malfunctioning armor. Weak points, Daewon said simply. Every armor has them. You just need to know where to look. He had been studying Thorgunn's armor the entire fight, watching how it moved, identifying the vulnerable spots. The dancing and dodging had not been cowardice. It had been reconnaissance. Inside the command ship, Captain Minho finished his upload. Package 1 is complete. Beginning targeted communications. He sent carefully crafted messages to 3 specific Krithok commanders, the ones Daewon had identified as Thorgunn's rivals. Each message appeared to come from their own intelligence division. Each one suggested Thorgunn had deliberately weakened their fleet positions, planning to sacrifice their ships while he claimed glory. Package 2 away, Minho reported. Now we just need. Alarms blared. Security had finally noticed something wrong. Time to go, Vera ordered. Extraction Route 3, double time. They ran through the corridors as Krithok soldiers converged on their position. Vera threw a smoke grenade behind them, buying precious seconds. Lieutenant Hana provided covering fire as they turned a corner. "Hangar bay ahead," shouted Sergeant Tajin. They burst through a doorway to find their stolen shuttle waiting. But 20 Krithok soldiers blocked their path. "We are trapped," Hana said, raising her weapon. "No," Vera said. "We just need 5 more seconds." On the asteroid, Thorgunn had finally landed a hit. His blade grazed Daewon's shoulder, burning through cloth and skin. Blood ran down the human's arm, but he did not cry out. He just adjusted his stance, now favoring his right side slightly. "Finally," Thorgunn laughed. "You bleed like everyone else." "Yes," Daewon agreed. "But I also learn." Thorgunn charged again, confident now. He had found his opponent's speed limit. The human could be hit, but Daewon had wanted to be hit. He needed Thorgunn close, confident, aggressive. As the Admiral brought his blade down in a killing strike, Daewon did something unexpected. He moved forward into the attack instead of away. The blade missed his head by millimeters. Daewon's knife found Thorgunn's neck, right above the armor seal. Not deep enough to kill, but deep enough to matter. Blood spurted, purple against red skin. Thorgunn stumbled back, hand going to his throat. His eyes were wide with shock. "Impossible. Nothing is impossible," Daewon said quietly. "You just believed you were invincible. That belief made you vulnerable." In the command ship hangar, chaos erupted. The false intelligence had just appeared on every screen. Warnings of an incoming Velkari fleet. Alerts suggesting this was a trap. 3 commanders simultaneously demanded to speak with Admiral Thorgunn, questioning the battle plan. The Krithok soldiers blocking Vera's team turned to look at their own command staff, confusion spreading. In that moment of distraction, Vera led her team to the shuttle and launched. "We are clear," she reported to the Velkari fleet. "Package delivered. Extraction successful." On the asteroid, Thorgunn fell to his knees. The neck wound was not fatal, but it was humiliating. The greatest Krithok warrior, defeated by a small human with a simple knife. "Do you yield?" Daewon asked. Thorgunn looked up at him with hatred and grudging respect. "I yield." The words echoed across every broadcast, across every ship. The impossible had happened, but the real victory was just beginning. On the Krithok command ship, 3 fleet commanders were now openly arguing with each other. The false intelligence suggested this entire battle was a setup, that massive Velkari reinforcements were inbound. The targeted messages convinced them Thorgunn had betrayed them. "I will not sacrifice my ships for his glory," Commander Vector announced, breaking formation. "This is a trap," Commander Nalith agreed. "Fools," screamed the Admiral's second-in-command. "It is a deception. Stay in formation." But it was too late. The seeds of doubt had been planted perfectly. Within the hour, 30 Krithok ships broke formation and jumped to hyperspace. Then, 50 more. The unified fleet crumbled into arguing factions. Day One stood on the asteroid, watching the Krithok fleet dissolve. Lysara's voice came through his communicator. "Husband, you did it. They are leaving." "We did it," he corrected gently. "Your people are safe. Come home," she said. "Please come home." Day One looked at his bloody knife. Then, at his reflection in the blade, he saw the soldier he had been, the man he tried to leave behind, but he also saw the person he chose to become. "I am coming home," he said. Behind him, Thorgun was being carried away by his own people, defeated and humiliated. The Krithok fleet scattered in confusion, and the Velkari Empire stood victorious, without firing a single shot, exactly as planned. The palace landing bay was filled with people when Day One's shuttle arrived. Thousands of Velkari citizens stood waiting, nobles and servants alike. The news of his victory had spread across the entire empire within hours. The human, who everyone had mocked, had defeated the feared Admiral Thorgun and scattered the Krithok fleet without the Empire firing a single shot. As the shuttle door opened, absolute silence fell. They watched Day One emerge, still wearing his simple combat gear, blood-stained and torn. His shoulder was bandaged where Thorgun's blade had burned him. He looked tired and small among the towering aliens around him. Then someone began to clap. A servant who had worked in the gardens with him. Another joined. Then another. Soon, the entire crowd was applauding, the sound echoing through the massive chamber like thunder. Day One looked uncomfortable with the attention. He nodded politely and tried to walk toward the palace entrance. But people reached out to touch him, to thank him, to bow in respect. The man they had dismissed as weak had saved their families, their worlds, their entire civilization. Lysara stood at the top of the landing bay stairs, watching. Her heart swelled with pride and pain. Pride because her husband had proven himself beyond any doubt. Pain because she saw in his eyes the cost of what he had done. He had reached back into a past he tried to bury and pulled out the soldier he used to be. She could see it haunted him. Their eyes met across the crowd. Day One gave her a small, tired smile. She ran down the steps, her royal dignity forgotten, and embraced him. 4 arms wrapped around his small frame, holding him close. "I was so afraid," she whispered into his hair. "I know," he said softly, "but I could not let them hurt you, hurt our people." Around them, the crowd continued to celebrate. But in their embrace, they created a small island of quiet. Commander Vera approached, bowing deeply. "Royal consort, the Empire owes you a debt that cannot be repaid. You risked your life on that command ship," Day One said. "We both did our duty. No debt is owed." But Vera shook her head. "I have served for 50 years. I have never seen strategy like yours. The precision, the timing, the understanding of psychology. You saw solutions where our greatest generals saw only defeat." Lord Craven approached next, and his expression was complicated. Pride, shame, and respect warred on his features. I mocked you, called you weak. I was wrong. Forgive me." "Nothing to forgive," Day One said simply. "You judged by the standards you knew. I did not give you reason to think otherwise." "Will you teach our military?" General Morak asked, joining them. "This type of warfare, this strategic thinking, we need to learn it." Day One hesitated. Lysara felt him tense in her arms. "I will consider it. But I am not a teacher. I was a tool, not an instructor." "You are whatever you choose to be," Lysara said gently. "But we should let him rest. He has earned it." The crowd parted, allowing them to pass. As they walked through the palace halls, servants bowed. Nobles who had laughed at him now stepped aside with respect. The change was absolute and immediate. That night, in their private chambers. Lysara tended to Day One's wounds. The burn on his shoulder was healing, but it would leave a scar. She applied medicine gently while he sat quietly on their bed. "Are you angry with me?" she finally asked. "For asking you to be that person again?" Day One was quiet for a long moment. "No. You gave me a choice. I made it freely. But what? I remembered things I tried to forget. The feeling of knowing exactly how to hurt someone, where to cut for maximum effect, how to manipulate people's fears and loyalties. It came back so easily, Lysara. Like I never left that life at all. Does that frighten you?" "Yes, because part of me enjoyed it. The precision, the problem solving, the satisfaction when a complex plan works perfectly. I enjoyed defeating Thorgun, exposing his weaknesses, making him fall. What kind of person enjoys that?" Lysara moved to sit beside him. "A person who is good at something difficult. My people enjoy combat because we are bred for it. You enjoyed strategy because you have a gift for it. That does not make you evil. I left Earth because I was tired of being a weapon. I came here to be a gardener, a scholar, someone who builds instead of destroys. But when you needed me, I became a weapon again. So easily. You became what we needed to survive," Lysara corrected. "And when this crisis is over, you will return to your gardens. Because that is who you choose to be. The ability to fight does not define you. Your choices define you. What if there is another crisis? Another enemy? Will you ask me to be that person again?" Only if there is no other choice. Only if our people's lives depend on it." She took his hand. "But I will never demand it. And I will never think less of you if you say no." Day One smiled slightly. "You say that now. But you have seen what I can do. It will be tempting to use that tool when problems arise. Then help me remember. Remind me that you are my husband first, not the Empire's weapon. Promise me you will tell me if I start treating you like a resource instead of a person." "I promise." They sat together in comfortable silence for a while. Outside their window, the city celebrated. Fireworks burst across the night sky, in colors Earth had never known. The people rejoiced because their empire was safe. Over the following weeks, news spread throughout the galaxy. The Krithok Dominion had been humiliated. Their fleet scattered, their admiral defeated by a single human. The internal conflicts that Day One's false intelligence had sparked grew worse. Within 2 months, the Krithok were fighting each other instead of conquering others. Their empire would never recover. Other civilizations took notice. Humanity, which had been dismissed as a minor species, suddenly received diplomatic attention. Earth's government was surprised and confused when 3 dozen alien empires requested formal meetings. "What happened?" Earth's diplomatic corps asked. "Why is everyone suddenly interested in us?" Then they learned about Day One. About what he had done. About how one human had defeated an enemy that terrified 3 star systems. The story spread. Some parts were accurate. Many parts were exaggerated. But the message was clear. Humans were not to be underestimated. They were small. They looked weak. But they possessed something unique. An ability to think differently. To find solutions others missed. To turn weakness into strength. "They can be warriors or gardeners," one alien diplomat reported. "And the terrifying thing is, they can switch between these roles in a heartbeat. You never know which one you are dealing with until it is too late." In the Velkari Palace, life slowly returned to normal. Day One returned to his gardens. He spent his days among the earth roses and alien flowers, pruning and planting and tending. He read his books in quiet corners. He walked through the halls learning new servants' names. But something had changed. The servants who had loved him before now also respected him. The nobles who had mocked him now sought his counsel. When the War Council met, there was always a chair reserved for him, even if he rarely attended. "The human sees things we miss," General Morak admitted to his officers. "He understands that warfare is not always about who has the biggest fleet. Sometimes it is about understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves." Lysara watched her husband carefully during those weeks. She saw the small signs of internal struggle. Sometimes she caught him staring at nothing, his expression distant. Other times he would be tending his garden with unusual intensity, as if trying to root himself in peaceful activities. One evening, 3 months after the Krythok incident, she found him sitting alone in the garden at night. The 3 moons cast strange shadows across the flowers. "Cannot sleep?" she asked, sitting beside him. "Too many thoughts," he admitted. "I received a message today. From Earth." "Oh?" "My old commanding officer. He congratulated me on the Krythok situation. Said I had not lost my touch. Then he asked if I would consider consulting for Earth's military on strategic planning." "What did you tell him?" "I have not replied yet. Part of me wants to help. If my experience can prevent wars, save lives, is it not my duty to share it?" He looked at her. "But part of me knows that if I start consulting, I will be pulled back into that world. Strategy meetings, military planning, becoming the thing I left behind." "What do you want to do?" Day One looked at his hands. Gardener's hands. Stained with soil, but also scarred from old battles. "I want to tend my roses. I want to read philosophy. I want to walk through markets with you and pretend we are just 2 people, not a queen and her warrior." "Then do that," Lysara said simply. "But is it selfish to have these skills and not use them? You already used them. You saved my empire. You have earned the right to rest." She took his hand. "The galaxy will always have wars. There will always be crises. If you spend your life preparing for them, you will never live. You will only survive." "When did you become so wise?" "I learned it from a gardener I know," she smiled. "He once told me that power is easy to find, but gentleness is rare. He taught me that choosing peace is harder than choosing war. That the truly strong are those who could destroy but choose to build instead." Day One pulled her close. "I love you. I love you too. Both versions of you. The gentle philosopher and the dangerous strategist. Because they are both you, and I would not change either one." They sat together under the alien moons while the city slept around them. Above them, ships patrolled the borders of the Empire, keeping watch. But here in the garden, there was only peace. The next morning, Day One sent his reply to Earth. It was polite, but firm. He thanked them for the offer, but declined. He had retired for a reason. He had found something more valuable than strategy and victory. He had found a life worth living, not just surviving. His old commander read the message and smiled. "He finally learned," the man said to himself. "Took him long enough." Years passed. The Velkari Empire prospered under Lysara's rule. Occasionally, there were threats. Pirates, trade disputes, minor conflicts. But each time, Lysara's government found diplomatic or economic solutions. They did not need to call upon Day One's strategic mind. He remained the quiet consort, tending his gardens and offering gentle wisdom when asked. The people of the Empire never forgot what he had done, but they respected his choice to live peacefully. Sometimes, visiting diplomats would ask to meet the legendary human who had defeated the Krythok. They expected to find a warrior, battle-scarred and fierce. Instead, they found a man in simple clothes, smelling of flowers, who offered them tea and talked about philosophy. "You are the one who destroyed an empire?" they would ask, confused. "I helped an empire destroy itself," Day One would correct gently. "I simply provided the right push at the right time. Would you like to see the gardens? The roses are blooming beautifully this season." And they would walk through the gardens, these powerful beings who commanded fleets and ruled worlds, listening to a small human talk about the proper way to prune a rosebush. And somehow, without realizing it, they would leave with insights about leadership, about patience, about the difference between power and strength. He is still doing it, Vera observed to Lysara once. Teaching strategy, but disguised as gardening advice. Shh. Lysara smiled. Let him do it his way. A gardener's way. Planting seeds and watching them grow. On quiet evenings, when the palace slept and the city lights dimmed, Lysara and Day One would sit in their garden. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they sat in comfortable silence. Always, they were simply two people who had found each other across the vastness of space and chosen to build a life together. Do you ever regret it? Lysara asked one night. Leaving your warrior life for this? Day One looked around at his gardens, at his wife, at the peaceful life they had built. Never, he said. I would rather grow 1,000 roses than win 1,000 battles. This is better than any victory. However, very see. For one, even though the galaxy still has wars, still needs warriors, the galaxy will always need warriors. But it also needs gardeners, and poets, and teachers, and people who remember that all the fighting is supposed to be protecting something worth protecting. I have been a warrior. Now I want to be the thing worth protecting. Lysara kissed him gently. You are. You always have been. And in the garden, under 3 moons, the alien queen and the human gardener held each other close. The galaxy continued to turn. Wars continued somewhere in the darkness between stars. But here, there was only peace. The kind of peace that had to be chosen. The kind that took more strength than any battle. The kind worth fighting for.